What if I told you that for over 2,000 years, 9 individuals have been silently guarding humanity's most dangerous secrets? Not from some modern intelligence agency or corporate boardroom, but from an ancient order that predates Christianity itself. Tonight, we're diving deep into one of history's most enigmatic legends, the 9 unknown men of ancient India. Imagine knowledge so powerful it could reshape civilization overnight. Scientific discoveries that could either elevate humanity to unimaginable heights or obliterate us entirely. Now imagine that knowledge being carefully guarded by a secret society so effective that they've remained hidden for over 2 millennia. This isn't science fiction. This is the legend that has captivated historians, conspiracy theorists, and mystics for generations. But here's what makes this story absolutely chilling. What if it's not just a legend? What if somewhere in our world today, these 9 guardians are still watching, still deciding what knowledge humanity is ready to receive? By the end of this investigation, you'll understand why some of history's greatest minds might have been connected to this ancient order, and why the sudden bursts of technological advancement in our world might not be as random as they appear. The story begins in ancient India with one of history's most brutal transformations. Picture this. The year is 226 BCE, and Emperor Ashoka has just witnessed something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. The Kalinga War has ended, but at a cost so devastating that it breaks the spirit of one of antiquity's most powerful rulers. Over 100,000 soldiers lie dead. Another 150,000 have been torn from their homes and deported. The rivers run red with blood, and the screams of the dying echo across the battlefield. But it's not just the scale of death that transforms Ashoka, it's the realization of what unchecked power can do when wielded without wisdom. Here's where the story gets fascinating. Modern scholarship reveals something the traditional narrative glosses over. Ashoka had actually converted to Buddhism at least 2 years before the Kalinga War even began. His transformation wasn't just about remorse, it was about something far more calculated and profound. This wasn't a broken emperor seeking redemption. This was a strategic mind recognizing that knowledge itself could be the most dangerous weapon ever created. Standing among the corpses of his enemies, Ashoka faced a terrifying question that would reshape his empire and potentially all of human history. What happens when advanced knowledge falls into the wrong hands? His answer would become the foundation of one of the most secretive organizations ever conceived. The task ahead was monumental. How do you preserve humanity's greatest discoveries while protecting civilization from its own potential for destruction? Ashoka understood that no single person, not even an emperor, could bear this responsibility alone. The weight of such knowledge would crush any individual mind, and the temptation to misuse it would corrupt even the purest intentions. So Ashoka did something unprecedented in the ancient world. He summoned 9 of the most brilliant minds in India, philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, and scholars whose intellects were so extraordinary that their very names were considered too dangerous to record publicly. These weren't just academics. These were individuals who understood that with great knowledge comes the power to either nurture civilization or annihilate it completely. The formation of this secret society wasn't random. Every detail was carefully calculated for maximum effectiveness and absolute secrecy. The number 9 wasn't chosen by chance. It represented the perfect balance between having enough members to preserve and advance knowledge while maintaining the tight security that only a small group could provide. 9 minds working in harmony, each specializing in a different field of dangerous knowledge. But here's what makes this organization truly extraordinary. They didn't just collect existing knowledge. They were tasked with actively advancing it, pushing the boundaries of science and understanding while simultaneously ensuring that these discoveries never fell into the wrong hands. Each member was assigned a specific book, not just to guard, but to continuously update, revise, and perfect the knowledge contained within. The succession system they developed shows remarkable foresight. When age, illness, or death, threatened to break the chain, each member was responsible for selecting and training their replacement. The knowledge could never be lost, and the number could never change. 9 guardians for 9 books, 9 protectors of humanity's most dangerous secrets. For over 2 millennia, this cycle has allegedly continued, each generation of guardians passing their burden to the next, ensuring that the knowledge remains preserved but contained. The organization's very existence depends on a level of secrecy so complete that even today, we can only speculate about their true nature. What kind of knowledge could be so dangerous that it requires such extreme protection? According to the most widely accepted accounts, the 9 books cover subjects that would make modern scientists tremble with both excitement and terror. We're talking about technologies and discoveries that could fundamentally alter the balance of power in our world. The first book deals with propaganda and psychological warfare, the science of molding mass opinion. Think about that for a moment. In an age where information travels at the speed of light and public opinion can shift entire nations overnight, imagine having access to the fundamental principles of how human minds can be influenced and controlled. As one account puts it, this knowledge would enable anyone to govern the whole world. But that's just the beginning. The second book focuses on physiology, supposedly containing techniques so advanced they border on the supernatural. We're talking about methods to manipulate the human nervous system itself, including something called the touch of death, a technique that could kill someone by reversing nerve impulses with a single touch. Some legends suggest that martial arts like judo emerged from fragments of this knowledge that somehow leaked into the world. The third book ventures into microbiology, dealing with the microscopic world in ways that might have seemed like magic to ancient civilizations, but could represent knowledge that we're only beginning to understand today. When you consider that germ theory wasn't accepted by mainstream medicine until the 19th century, imagine what other biological secrets might be contained in ancient texts. Then we have the fourth book, Alchemy and the Transmutation of Metals. Before you dismiss this as medieval superstition, remember that modern nuclear physics has actually achieved transmutation on a small scale. What if this ancient knowledge contained the keys to processes we're still struggling to understand? The legend specifically mentions the transformation of lead into gold, but what if that's just the surface of far more profound chemical and atomic knowledge? The remaining books venture into territory that sounds like science fiction but might represent technologies we haven't even begun to imagine. Communication systems that could reach beyond Earth itself. Gravitational manipulation that could revolutionize transportation and construction. The secrets of light itself as both a tool of creation and destruction. But perhaps the most intriguing book deals with sociology, the rules governing the rise and fall of civilizations. Think about the implications. What if there are actual laws, as predictable as physics, that determine how societies evolve, prosper, and ultimately collapse? What if these patterns could be mapped, predicted, and potentially influenced? This is where the legend becomes truly unsettling. We're not just talking about a historical curiosity or an ancient myth. We're talking about the possibility that somewhere in our world, 9 individuals possess knowledge that could reshape everything we think we know about science, society, and human potential itself. The question that haunts every investigation into this legend is simple yet terrifying. What if they're still out there? What if the 9 unknown men have been quietly influencing human development for over 2,000 years, carefully releasing just enough knowledge to guide our progress, while ensuring we never advance too quickly for our own good? As we dig deeper into this mystery, we'll explore the alleged connections between this ancient order and some of history's greatest minds. We'll examine the evidence that suggests certain technological breakthroughs might not have been as spontaneous as they appeared. And we'll confront the possibility that in our modern world of rapid technological advancement, these guardians might be more active than ever before. The evidence for their continued existence isn't found in ancient texts or archaeological digs. It's hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of our modern world. Consider this. Throughout history, certain individuals have emerged with knowledge that seemed impossibly advanced for their time, knowledge that appears to have come from nowhere, yet changed the course of human civilization forever. Take Pope Sylvester II, who lived from 946 to 1003 CE. On the surface, he was simply another religious figure in medieval Europe. But dig deeper, and you'll find something extraordinary. This man possessed technological knowledge that wouldn't be discovered by mainstream science for centuries. He created mechanical clocks when most of Europe couldn't even tell time accurately. He built calculating machines that functioned like primitive computers. Most mysteriously, he allegedly constructed a bronze head that could answer yes or no questions, a device that operated on principles suspiciously similar to binary systems. Where did a medieval pope acquire such advanced knowledge? The legend provides a chilling answer. According to accounts that surfaced centuries later, Sylvester II had traveled to India on a mysterious expedition. There, he supposedly encountered the 9 unknown men and was granted access to fragments of their guarded knowledge. He returned to Europe not just as a religious leader, but as a guardian of secrets that wouldn't officially exist for another 1,000 years. But here's what makes this story truly unsettling. Sylvester II isn't an isolated case. Throughout history, brilliant minds have emerged with insights that seem to transcend their era. Sir Isaac Newton didn't just discover gravity, he unveiled mathematical principles that perfectly described forces no one had even properly identified before. Albert Einstein didn't just theorize about relativity, he revealed the fundamental nature of space and time itself. Were these men simply geniuses ahead of their time? Or were they part of something larger, a carefully orchestrated release of knowledge by guardians who understood exactly when humanity was ready for the next breakthrough? The pattern becomes even more intriguing when you examine the source of the modern legend itself. In 1923, a British writer named Talbot Mundy published a novel called The 9 Unknown Men. But Mundy wasn't just any writer. He was a former British officer who had spent 5 years stationed in India, with access to local legends and hidden knowledge that most Westerners never encountered. What's fascinating is that Mundy himself was connected to secret societies. He was associated with an organization called the Ancient Order of Freesmiths, a group that claimed to be custodians of secret wisdom received from ancient Indian dynasties around 700 CE. Suddenly, his fictional novel begins to look less like fantasy and more like carefully disguised truth. Think about this for a moment. A man with deep connections to secretive organizations writes a book about an ancient secret society guarding dangerous knowledge. He claims it's fiction, but the details are so specific, so carefully researched, that they've convinced generations of readers that something real might be hidden beneath the surface. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. The list of 9 forbidden books that most people associate with the legend, covering everything from propaganda to anti-gravity technology, doesn't actually appear in Mundy's original novel. These specific topics were added later by other writers, as if someone was gradually revealing more details about knowledge that was supposed to remain hidden. This raises a terrifying possibility. What if Mundy's novel wasn't fiction at all? What if it was a controlled release of information, carefully crafted to introduce the world to concepts they weren't ready to fully understand? The gradual embellishment of the legend over decades could represent a slow unveiling of truth, administered in doses small enough to avoid panic, but large enough to prepare humanity for what's coming. The evidence becomes even more compelling when you examine the sudden acceleration of technological advancement in the modern era. For thousands of years, human progress moved at a relatively predictable pace. Then, in the span of just 2 centuries, we went from horse-drawn carriages to space travel, from candlelight to nuclear power, from letters carried by messenger to instant global communication. This isn't gradual evolution, it's exponential explosion. And according to the legend, this is exactly what you'd expect if ancient guardians were gradually releasing more advanced knowledge as humanity proved it could handle greater responsibility. Consider the timing of major breakthroughs. The discovery of antibiotics came just as global warfare threatened to decimate populations. Nuclear energy emerged precisely when humanity needed new power sources to fuel rapid industrialization. Computer technology developed just as the volume of information began to exceed human ability to process it manually. Coincidence? Or careful orchestration by guardians who understand exactly when to introduce new capabilities? The legend suggests that great minds throughout history, from ancient philosophers to modern scientists, have been unknowing recipients of this carefully controlled knowledge. They believe they're making independent discoveries, but they're actually uncovering truths that have been preserved and protected for millennia. This theory explains something that has puzzled historians for generations. Why do certain discoveries seem to emerge simultaneously from multiple sources? Why do breakthrough insights often appear just when humanity is ready to use them constructively rather than destructively? The 9 unknown men, if they exist, aren't just preserving knowledge, they're actively managing human development. They're ensuring that we advance quickly enough to solve our problems, but not so quickly that we destroy ourselves in the process. But this raises the most chilling question of all. What happens when we reach the limits of their guidance? What happens when humanity is finally ready for the knowledge in those 9 forbidden books? And most terrifyingly, what if we're approaching that moment right now? The rapid pace of change in our modern world, the convergence of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and quantum computing might not be random acceleration. It might be the final phase of a plan that began over 2,000 years ago with a remorseful emperor standing among the dead on an ancient battlefield. If the 9 unknown men are real, if they've been guiding our development all along, then we're living through the most critical moment in human history. The moment when the guardians finally decide whether humanity is ready for the full truth, or whether we still need protection from our own potential for destruction. The answer to that question might be closer than we imagine. Because when you start looking at the modern world through the lens of this ancient legend, patterns begin to emerge that can't be easily dismissed. Strange patterns that suggest these guardians might not just be real, they might be more active now than they've ever been before. Let's examine something that should terrify anyone who truly understands its implications. The Internet. Think about how this technology actually developed. It wasn't created by a single inventor or company. Instead, it emerged from a complex web of research projects, military initiatives, and academic collaborations that somehow converged into the perfect moment in history. DARPANET, the precursor to our modern Internet, was supposedly developed for military communication resilience. But look deeper, and you'll find something unsettling. The fundamental protocols that govern how information travels across global networks contain elegant mathematical principles that seem almost too perfect, too sophisticated for their era. As if the inventors were following a blueprint they didn't fully understand themselves. Now consider the timing. The Internet became publicly accessible just as humanity faced an unprecedented information crisis. Libraries couldn't contain the explosion of human knowledge. Traditional communication systems couldn't handle the volume of data being generated. Just when we needed it most, a technology appeared that could connect every human mind on the planet. Coincidence? Or intervention? But the Internet is just one example. Look at the development of GPS technology. On the surface, it's a navigation system developed by the military and later released for civilian use. But the underlying science requires an understanding of relativity so precise that it borders on the supernatural. The satellites must account for time dilation effects, that were theoretical curiosities just decades earlier. How did engineers suddenly possess the mathematical sophistication to build systems that depend on Einstein's most complex theories? Either human intelligence made an impossible leap, or someone provided guidance that ensured these technologies would work perfectly the first time. The pattern repeats across every major technological breakthrough of the past century. Transistors appeared just as vacuum tubes reached their limitations. Integrated circuits emerged exactly when transistors became insufficient. Each innovation arrives with perfect timing, as if orchestrated by minds that can see decades into the future. But perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in the realm of artificial intelligence. Consider what's happening right now in our world. Machines are beginning to exhibit behaviors that their creators don't fully understand. Neural networks are making connections that surprise even the scientists who built them. We're approaching a threshold where artificial minds might surpass human intelligence entirely. This should be terrifying. Uncontrolled artificial intelligence could represent the ultimate misuse of knowledge, the creation of entities that could dominate or destroy their creators. And yet, somehow, the development seems to be proceeding with remarkable restraint. Key breakthroughs are being delayed just long enough for ethical frameworks to develop. Critical safety research is being funded at exactly the right moments. It's as if invisible hands are guiding the process, ensuring that we don't cross dangerous lines too quickly. Now, let's talk about something that will make your blood run cold. The people who are leading these technological revolutions, the minds behind our greatest modern innovations, many of them describe their breakthrough moments in eerily similar ways. They talk about insights that came to them fully formed, solutions that appeared in their minds like downloads from some external source. Steve Jobs described the development of revolutionary products as receiving visions of technologies that didn't yet exist. Nikola Tesla claimed his inventions came to him in complete detail during moments of inspiration. Even modern pioneers like Elon Musk speak of understanding complex engineering problems through intuitive leaps that bypass traditional learning processes. Are these simply descriptions of genius at work? Or are they glimpses of something more systematic, a process by which selected individuals receive carefully controlled access to advanced knowledge? The legend of the 9 unknown men suggests that throughout history, certain people have been chosen to serve as conduits for this protected knowledge. They're not necessarily members of the organization itself, but they become unwitting agents, believing they're making independent discoveries while actually following a path laid out by ancient guardians. This theory explains something that has puzzled psychologists and historians for generations. Why do revolutionary insights often emerge simultaneously from multiple sources? Why do several inventors often develop similar technologies at exactly the same time, even when they're working independently on different continents? The answer might be that they're not working independently at all. They're all receiving guidance from the same source, an organization that has been carefully orchestrating human development for over 2 millennia. But here's where the story becomes truly disturbing. What if the rapid acceleration of change in our modern world isn't just coincidence? What if it's a sign that we're approaching the endgame of a plan that began with Emperor Ashoka's transformation on that ancient battlefield? Think about the convergence happening right now. Artificial intelligence is approaching human-level capability. Genetic engineering is giving us the power to redesign life itself. Quantum computing is unlocking computational possibilities that could break every security system on Earth. Space technology is finally making other worlds accessible to human civilization. All of these developments are happening simultaneously in the span of just a few decades. Either humanity has suddenly become exponentially more intelligent, or we're witnessing the controlled release of knowledge that has been held in reserve for centuries. If the 9 unknown men are real, this moment might represent their final test. After 2,000 years of carefully guiding human development, they might be preparing to reveal the full contents of those 9 forbidden books, but only if they believe we're ready. only if they trust that we won't use this ultimate knowledge to destroy ourselves and everything we've built. The question that should keep you awake at night is simple. What happens if they decide we're not ready? What if they look at our wars, our environmental destruction, our inability to cooperate on global challenges, and conclude that humanity still needs protection from its own potential? The legend suggests that the 9 unknown men have intervened before, when civilizations became too dangerous. Ancient texts speak of advanced societies that mysteriously collapsed just as they reached the peak of their technological development. Entire cultures that vanished from history, leaving behind only ruins and questions. Were these natural collapses the inevitable result of civilizations growing beyond their ability to sustain themselves? Or were they engineered events, carefully orchestrated by guardians who recognized that certain paths led only to destruction? In our modern world, such intervention wouldn't require armies or obvious catastrophes. A few key technologies could be made to fail. Critical research could be subtly misdirected. The interconnected nature of our civilization means that relatively small adjustments could cascade into complete transformation. The internet that connects us could be turned into a weapon of division. The artificial intelligence we're developing could be guided toward control rather than liberation. The genetic technologies we're perfecting could be redirected from healing toward manipulation. But there's another possibility, one that's even more unsettling. What if the 9 unknown men have already made their decision about humanity's readiness? What if the rapid changes we're witnessing aren't preparation for revelation, but preparation for judgment? Consider the challenges facing our world right now. Climate change that threatens our entire ecosystem. Political divisions that are tearing apart the social fabric of nations. Economic systems that are creating unprecedented inequality. Weapons of mass destruction in the hands of unstable leaders. These aren't just random problems, they're tests. Each challenge is forcing humanity to demonstrate whether we can cooperate, whether we can put long-term survival above short-term gain, whether we can use our knowledge wisely rather than destructively. The 9 unknown men, if they exist, are watching our responses. They're evaluating whether we deserve access to the ultimate knowledge they've been protecting, or whether we still pose too great a risk to ourselves and the universe. And here's the most chilling possibility of all. What if we're failing their tests? What if they're watching our inability to address global warming, our continued investment in weapons rather than wisdom, our growing divisions at the very moment when unity is most critical, and they're concluding that humanity isn't ready for the final revelation? The legend speaks of the 9 unknown men as protectors of humanity, but protection sometimes requires difficult choices. A parent doesn't give a child access to dangerous tools until they've proven they can use them responsibly. Guardians who have watched over our species for 2 millennia might be facing the hardest decision in human history. Do they trust us with the knowledge that could make us gods? Or do they continue protecting us from ourselves, even if it means limiting our potential forever? The answer to that question might determine whether our technological acceleration continues, or whether we're about to witness a great reset that forces us to start over. Because the 9 unknown men, if they're real, aren't just guardians of knowledge. They might be the judges of whether humanity deserves a future at all. The signs are everywhere once you know how to look for them. Consider this. Why do certain individuals throughout history seem to possess knowledge that's impossibly advanced for their time, yet they never fully explain where these insights originated? They speak in vague terms about inspiration, about sudden understanding, about solutions that came to them in dreams or moments of clarity. But what if these weren't random moments of genius? What if they were carefully orchestrated encounters with knowledge that was being selectively released? Let's examine some cases that will make you question everything you think you know about human discovery. In the early 1900s, a relatively unknown patent clerk named Albert Einstein suddenly revolutionized our understanding of space, time, and energy with theories so advanced that even today, most people can't fully comprehend them. Where did this knowledge come from? Einstein himself described his breakthrough moments as receiving complete visions of mathematical relationships that seemed to download into his consciousness fully formed. Then there's Nikola Tesla, whose inventions were so far ahead of his time that many of his concepts are only now being understood and implemented. Tesla claimed that his ideas came to him through what he called flashes of insight, complete technological blueprints that appeared in his mind with perfect clarity. He could visualize entire machines in his head, run them mentally for weeks to test for wear, and then build them physically with absolute precision. These aren't isolated cases. Throughout history, breakthrough discoveries have followed eerily similar patterns. The discoverer describes receiving knowledge rather than developing it. The insights come complete and perfect, requiring little refinement, and the timing always seems to align perfectly with humanity's readiness to use these discoveries constructively. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. Modern research into consciousness and information theory suggests that the human brain might actually be capable of accessing information from sources we don't yet understand. Quantum mechanics has revealed that consciousness itself might play a fundamental role in shaping reality. What if certain minds can tap into a repository of knowledge that exists beyond our normal understanding? The 9 unknown men, if they exist, wouldn't need to physically contact these chosen individuals. They might have developed methods of transmitting information directly into receptive consciousness. Ancient Indian texts speak of advanced meditation techniques that could allow minds to connect across vast distances. What we dismiss as mysticism might actually be sophisticated technology that operates on principles we haven't yet discovered. This raises a terrifying question. Are the great minds of history actually independent thinkers, or are they unknowing agents of an ancient agenda? When Einstein unlocked the secrets of atomic energy, was he making a personal discovery, or was he receiving information that guardians decided humanity was ready to possess? The timing suggests careful orchestration. Nuclear energy emerged just as civilization needed new power sources to support rapid industrialization. But it also appeared precisely when global tensions were reaching a breaking point that would require unprecedented weapons to resolve. The knowledge came with both creative and destructive potential, as if it were a test of humanity's wisdom. Consider what happened next. Instead of using nuclear energy purely for destruction, humanity chose to harness it for electricity, medicine, and research. We passed the test, proving we could use dangerous knowledge responsibly, and almost immediately, the next wave of discoveries began to emerge. Transistors appeared, launching the computer age. DNA structure was decoded, opening the door to genetic medicine. Space exploration became possible, giving us a broader perspective on our place in the universe. Each breakthrough built upon the last, creating an accelerating spiral of advancement that continues to this day. But this pattern reveals something deeply unsettling about our current moment in history. The technologies emerging now aren't just more advanced than their predecessors. They're fundamentally different in their potential impact. Artificial intelligence could remake human consciousness itself. Genetic engineering could redesign the very essence of life. Quantum computing could unlock realities that exist beyond our current understanding of physics. These aren't just new tools. They're godlike powers that could elevate humanity to unprecedented heights or destroy us more completely than any previous technology. If the 9 unknown men are real, if they've been guiding our development all along, then we're approaching the moment they've been preparing us for across 2 millennia. The final test. The ultimate decision about whether humanity deserves access to the complete knowledge they've been protecting. And the evidence suggests we might be failing. Look around you. Despite having access to more information than any previous generation, we're more divided than ever. Despite possessing technologies that could solve hunger, disease, and environmental destruction, we choose to use our resources for competition rather than cooperation. Despite standing on the brink of becoming a spacefaring civilization, we remain trapped by the same petty conflicts that have plagued us throughout history. If ancient guardians are evaluating our readiness for ultimate knowledge, what conclusion would they reach? Would they see a species that has learned wisdom along with power? Or would they see children playing with increasingly dangerous toys, still too immature to be trusted with the keys to the universe? The acceleration of change in our world might not be preparation for revelation. It might be a final examination with consequences we can't even imagine. Because here's what the legend doesn't tell you directly, but what becomes clear when you study the patterns. The 9 unknown men aren't just protectors of knowledge. They're shepherds of human consciousness itself. Every major leap in our understanding has been carefully timed to expand our awareness just enough to handle the next level of responsibility. But what happens when a species reaches the limits of that guidance? What happens when the guardians determine that further advancement would be catastrophic? Ancient texts speak of civilizations that simply vanished at the height of their power. Not through war or natural disaster, but through something far more mysterious. Archaeological evidence suggests that some advanced cultures just stopped, as if their people simply walked away from everything they had built and disappeared into history. So, where does this leave us? Standing at the crossroads of legend and reality, staring into the shadows of history, where truth and myth dance together in an eternal spiral. Whether the 9 unknown men truly exist, or remain forever locked in the realm of ancient whispers, their story forces us to confront the most unsettling question of our time. Are we the masters of our own destiny, or are we still children under the watchful eyes of invisible guardians? Perhaps the answer doesn't matter. Perhaps what matters is that we're asking the question at all. Because in a world racing toward technologies that could reshape reality itself, the wisdom of ancient India echoes across the centuries with one simple truth. Knowledge without wisdom is the most dangerous force in the universe. The 9 unknown men may be watching us still, or they may have faded into the mists of time, but their lesson remains carved into the very foundations of human progress. Some secrets are worth keeping, some knowledge requires guardians, and some mysteries are more powerful when they remain unsolved. What do you think? Are we alone in our journey toward an unknowable future, or are ancient eyes still watching from the shadows? Let me know in the comments below, and if this journey into history's deepest mysteries has left you questioning everything you thought you knew, hit that subscribe button. Because the truth, as they say, is always stranger than fiction.